Not too long ago, someone forwarded an email to me from a young person who was interested in church and saw our pride flag out front and thought since we tried to welcome everyone, we might welcome her and her questions. She said she was curious about something called guided faith, which I thought was an incredibly insightful way to describe what I think we're up to at church, having our faith guided by a tradition. She said that she doesn't have much experience with church and wondered what we do. And I got to wondering, how would she hear the parable of the story today? Or, even more, how would I describe to her how this story guides my faith? A sower went out to sow. Those of us who've been around church for a while probably know this story and other stories like it. We know this is how Jesus teaches. It's a parable, a comparison, an image, a short story. It's meant to spark our imaginations, and Jesus evidently told them all the time. But it doesn't have a moral or a point. It's not like Aesop's fables or some internet meme that wants us to think a certain way. It's really meant to get us to ask questions. Who is this sower or farmer? And why is that sower just scattering seeds all over the place? Doesn't that person know you can't just throw seed on a dirt path? It's not going to grow. What kind of seed is it anyway? And what does any of this have to do with God? I think I would want to tell someone new to church that Jesus teaches this way because he wants to invite us to come go exploring. Exploring is the way that we find our way to God. And these stories help guide our path. To follow Jesus means always to be asking questions about what he says. Our questions matter, and so do our answers. As for answers, we do have a set of answers to what this parable is about in the gospel story today. The reading gives them in Jesus' own voice, like he's explaining it. Each type of soil describes a kind of person who hears Jesus' message. Some of this just don't understand, and that's the seed that falls on the hard path. Maybe others of us get distracted by our Instagram feed or whatever's on Facebook that day, or we just work so much we don't have time. That's the seed that falls among the thorns. Sometimes, though, we just don't have any energy to hear the word. Maybe we're too tired trying to take care of ourselves and each other in this pandemic time. Maybe we've lost our jobs. Maybe we're just worried. We don't have energy for this. That's the seed that falls in the shallow soil. But there are some soils that are ready to receive it. They understand and get it, and they produce a harvest. If a regular harvest is sevenfold, so 7 times the number of seeds you put in, and a good one is tenfold, enough to feed a village, well, 30-fold is a lot, an overwhelming amount. And 60 and 100-fold are just ridiculous. What I'm noticing when I hear this story today is that it's not necessarily anyone's fault that their soil isn't ready to receive the word. Sometimes our soil is deep, and sometimes it's shallow for all kinds of reasons. But for those of us who are able to produce a harvest right now, the purpose of all that abundance is to help nourish those whose soils are depleted. I wonder if that's why we're going to do summer suppers, because we can produce a harvest enough to feed and nourish those whose soil have been depleted by hunger or lack, or by losing a job. Either way, that's just one set of answers. And I would want to tell a person new to these stories that they all come from a time and place very different from our own, And that's why trying to understand the stories of Jesus requires learning something about where he came from, his time and his place, and his Jewish religious tradition. Our times are different, though, and we're different too. So if we want to let a story like this one guide our faith, we have to interpret it now. We have to ask our own questions and give our own answers if it's going to bear a harvest in us. The trouble is, and I wonder if this is true for you too, sometimes I've heard a story so many times, I don't even bother asking any questions about it anymore. I know sometimes I get stuck in my own answers. Maybe I even think I have the right answers. I think I would want to thank the person who is new to this story for reminding me to keep asking my questions, to listen to hers and ask new ones, and to remember that I never really have the answers. There isn't one answer. There are so many. That's why we keep reading it over and over again. And to me, the reason I'd come to a church is to listen to all the answers and all the questions we bring together, to learn from each other and then ask some new questions again. I need everyone else's questions and answers so I don't get stuck in my own. That's why I come to church. And now I'm wondering about the rest of us. How would you open up this parable to someone who'd never heard it before? How would you help describe for them how a story like this one helps guide your faith? What questions come up for you today? And what answers are you hearing? What does it mean to you? I ask because there are many people nowadays, always really, who are hearing these stories for the first time. And the gift and opportunity they bring us is to invite us to let go of or hold more lightly our own questions and our own answers so that we can make room for other questions and other answers. Perhaps we might join them in hearing this story as if we've never heard it before, and discover there a hundredfold harvest of wisdom that can guide our faith in the days that lie ahead. Right now, I am so very grateful to that sower who planted a seed in my heart through an email and left me wondering what new things I might learn from her.